It's been a little while since I've done one of these videos, and lots changed in the auto ranch since the last month in terms of cars coming and going. And the latest I have, I'm excited to share with you, is my 2023 BMW M2 G87. A car not without a ton of controversy compared to the first generation M2. We'll talk a little bit about that and kind of do, as we do the walk around. It's mostly, I think, in the looks department that the car gets a lot of hate and controversy. I did own a previous generation M2 F87. I think it was a 2018 Long Beach Blue. It was a beautiful car. I love that color. Obviously, I have a partialness to blue, but it had, the previous generation did have kind of a more, refined look to it. But I will say, and this is a cliche on this car, and a lot of people say this, but it is true. This car looks better in person. You really do have to see it. It'll grow on you even if you're hesitant. And it does have, I do love the bulging fender lines on it, and it being kind of a wide track car. Being maybe, I think I've read 2 inches wider than the standard 2 Series. So it's definitely a cool looking car in person, but looks are subjective. This particular one is in Zanroof blue, which is also a color that is exclusive to the new M2. It's not in, it's kind of a light blue, as you can see. I compare it to, and there actually is some connection, obviously, between the M cars and the N cars from Hyundai, with the head to, their former designer or engineer of the M division went to Hyundai, and they have a performance blue in Hyundai. It's very similar to this blue, and maybe that's not by coincidence, but anyways, it's a good looking blue. It's a very forgiving color. There's not a lot of color choices in the M2 right off the bat. You have Toronto red, you've got this blue, you've got black, you've got gray and white. So not a huge palette. Some people say that's related to the fact that these are actually produced in a new factory in Mexico, which has limited color capacity at this point. So the days of the German-built M cars seems like maybe that's come to an end, or at least for the M2. So. But, I acquired this car kind of by chance. I didn't order this car. I kind of lucked out. I know a lot of people are waiting for these. My local dealer, I called them a couple weeks ago. They told me they had about a 2-year wait for these cars. They were going to have a demo, or an HEA car, as they call it in BMW speak, basically a spec that's created by BMW and sent to the dealers. They don't get any say in it. They were going to have one of these, which ended up being this car. I told the dealer, they want a $2,500 deposit, a 2-year wait. That didn't really appeal to me. You don't know what the market's going to be, and you really don't know what's going to change with the cars and your life in general. So I kind of passed on ordering, but he was actually a really good salesperson. During the pandemic, not to get off track, but a lot of salespeople became order takers, and really there wasn't a lot of follow-up needed. People were just throwing money at you, and that started to end. And the true salespeople will rise to the top. And this gentleman at the local BMW store was top-notch, and he followed up, and that's how he ended up with the sale. Because he called me the minute that the dealer decided to sell this car. It was on a Saturday morning about a week ago. He called me at 9 a.m. when they opened and said, "Hey, we're going to sell our demo. You got about 15 minutes to decide if you want this car." And I knew there's always an element of hustle with selling cars, especially. But I knew it was right, and I knew it would go fast. And I'm glad I acted, because these are disappearing quickly as dealers decide to sell their HEA cars. So let's take a walk around it. And you can kind of get a feel for what your opinion is if you haven't seen one in person. I will say you're doing it a disservice if you don't look at it in person. The controversy on these cars really comes from the back and the front, but it's important, to call out really the hips. I think that's one of the coolest things is sort of the wide body look. But the back end and the front end, they are a little weird. They're almost kind of unfinished in this area, and it's the same on the front splitter. It's a black plastic. They will offer a carbon fiber, or I think they already have carbon fiber pieces for those. I'm sure they're expensive as hell. It definitely has like a wide body kit look, and it has, kind of a chiseled boxy look. But, that's kind of the way a lot of cars are moving. Even the new 6th generation Mustang kind of has that look. They did improve the grille, I think, versus the new M3 and M4. They get a lot of criticism, obviously, for that grille. But this, this is unfinished. I mean, it's a black plastic, so it's going to be suspect to a lot of scratching, I think. And if they had painted that body color, it may have given it a kind of more finished, polished look. The grills, the kidneys are horizontal instead of vertical. I think it actually looks pretty good. It certainly looks, like I said, better than the M3 and M4 with kind of the weird kidney grills on those. The other thing that's kind of odd about this car is it has the intercooler down there is kind of horizontal, and it's already picking up leaves and debris off the road. I'm surprised there's not some sort of screen or something in the aftermarket comes out, because that's probably going to be an issue at some point. These cars come with their staggered wheel setup, 20 inches in the rear, 19 in the front, 285s in the rear, 275s in the front. I did win the tire lottery on these, which is unusual for me. This particular car has the Michelin Pilot 4S tires, which in my opinion, as I've said in previous videos, is the best summer street tire you can buy. Some of these come with the Pirelli P0s, I believe, which I've had on some Mustangs in the past. They're okay, but they're not as good as the Michelin tire, so I did luck out with that. Like I said, this was a demo spec, so dealer got what they got. In this particular case, it was a manual, which was what I preferred. It had these are the standard black wheels. There is a two-tone option that you can get, a two-tone black and silver. It does have the carbon fiber roof, which is really cool. I think it's 13 pounds lighter than the standard roof. It also has the virtual cockpit, which gives you the heads-up display. It has the lighting package, which gives you the adaptive front lights that move as the car turns. It also has the shadow package, which kind of gives you the dark tint on the lens, as well as it has black exhaust tips. On the inside, this has the standard seats. And the first thing you notice when you step in this car is BMW is very proud of their M colors. That's probably one of the things that stands out the most in here. You have M colors on the door. They're on the seat belts. The seats have these are the standard seats. Like I said, there's two versions of the standard seats. You also have you have it on the lighting in the back. That's backlit on the headrest. There's two standard seats. They have these, which are, they have kind of like the blue stitching, but then they also have one that has kind of the M colors on the seats themselves. And then of course they have the carbon fiber buckets, which are a $10,000 option. Basically, it also gives you the carbon fiber roof as well as some carbon fiber dash trim. This particular one has kind of like a metallic film to it. Oh yeah. You've got kind of a, really fancy dash with the, the iDrive 8. It's got a lot of different kind of like widgets, almost like an iPad. You also have your M mode, where you can put it into road, sport, and track. That alters the data that's in the heads-up display. You also have a multi-configurable setup, which ties into these on the steering wheel, these M1 and M2 modes. You can, and that also has an impact on the exhaust mode as well. When you put it into Sport or Sport Plus, it opens up the valves, or Sport opens up the valves, and Sport Plus seems to give you kind of an override in the engine where you get some of those, everyone likes the pops and crackles, it gives you some of that. But it's, like I said, the technology in the iDrive 8 is far more advanced and somewhat more complicated than the previous M2. In fact, the BMW dealer where I got it at, they have a person that's strictly dedicated to going over this. They don't leave it to the salesperson to review. They actually have a person that goes over it, and she was extremely thorough. I'm kind of a techie, so to me, it was fairly easy to pick up, but there's still some confusing things. You do still get the iDrive wheel, and you also have a volume switch, which in America is a critical thing. Otherwise, they will chew you up. Just ask Honda. If you don't get the carbon fiber roof, you do get a sunroof. This particular car, like I said, has the carbon fiber roof. There's also ambient lighting that's color changeable, which has kind of become a standard fare on a lot of sporty cars. I'll show you the trunk and the talk a little bit about the power, which is a big part of this car. So for the 2023 M3, they moved it to the M3 and M4 motor, the S58. This particular motor in M2 fashion is rated at 453 horsepower and 406 foot-pounds of torque. Now those are ratings. The M3 and M4 are rated maybe 20 horsepower higher from the factory. However, everybody who's taken these cars to the dyno so far has found, in typical BMW fashion, they're underrated from the factory, and they're making about that 460 power range at the rear wheels, which would tell you it's an over 500 horsepower car at the crank. And it feels like that. Obviously having driven a lot of 500 and owned several cars over 500 horsepower, it feels like it's a 500 horsepower plus car. Certainly, almost 100 horsepower more than the last M2 I had in 2018. And the M2 comp, I think, was in the 405 range, if I remember right. So even another 50-some horsepower. Now they did gain some weight. They're about 200 pounds heavier than the previous generation. I think depending on where you look, around 3,800 pounds. Decent size trunk. But not, on the weight side, not much lighter than the standard M4, M3. So they kind of lost a little bit of that weight advantage that they had being a smaller car. But it is a shorter wheelbase. It's very nimble. I haven't driven the new M3 or M4, so I won't comment on comparison. But this car is quick, and it's nimble, and it handles really well, for what it is. And this could easily be a daily driver. It's also extremely comfortable, even in its sportiest mode of it has an adjustable suspension. It's not harsh. It's not like you can tell a difference, but it's not like Focus RS harsh, where you put it in track and the car, you got to wear a guard on your lowers to protect yourself. It's not like that. So I think as people who see it more and more, I think there's more acceptance of it, and people like it better. I like it. I think it's more exciting looking than the previous M2, certainly not as elegant. But I think it's a little sportier looking, to be honest. The other thing I'll point out, which is kind of a quirks type of deal, is these are the 50-year M badges celebrating their 50 years of the M division. At BMW, these are on the front and the deck lid, as well as on the wheel center caps. These are I think they're $150 option. From what I'm reading, they're only on the HEA demo cars. Some people ordered them as part of their factory orders, and they said now as they're getting ready for production, they were removed. So we'll see if that's true. It's not going to make any real difference, but it is kind of a unique piece of information that you may find in trivia someday, if that proves to be true. If they don't, just put them on all 2023s as an option, like you would think, or is it just a dealer, something that will be on the launch cars only, I guess is what I'm saying. So this is the M2. It's obviously my first introduction to it, to the channel. I will do some more in-depth driving of the car and share some exhaust clips and things. It has a really good sounding exhaust from the factory. My previous generation had the M Performance exhaust with had the little button, you could switch it on and off. It sounded aggressive, but I like the sound of this one better, even in the factory setup. So I'll share more of that. So if this is your, if you're into sporty cars and things that change, somebody that changes cars a lot, and I do own my cars. I'm not like unfortunately, I'm not a press driver that gets to test drive a bunch of different cars and share their opinions. I do own them, and so I give you kind of an owner's perspective. If that's the type of thing you like, I hope you'll subscribe, and feel free to like the video if it's been informative, and comment if there's things I can help you with. I'm happy to do so, and every subscriber means a lot to me at this point. It helps me stay motivated to share content. So I certainly appreciate you doing so if you feel inclined. But thank you for listening and checking out the video. I hope you have a good rest of your week.